The city at night seen from the 32nd floor looked like a galaxy laid on its side, glittering and indifferent. From Claire's balcony, downtown stretched in a silent sprawl of jeweled lights, a circuit board humming with possibilities I hadn't dared imagine. I pulled the cashmere blanket tighter around my shoulders, a gift from Claire offered with, "Here, you look like you need something that isn't tainted." The chill out here was clean, honest, not like the sterile cold in the condo I'd just walked out of, the one where I had spent years slowly freezing from the inside out. Inside, Claire was clattering in the kitchen. "I'm making tea. Chamomile. You're drinking it. No arguments." Her voice, always direct, was a lifeline anchored in reality. The first 48 hours after the world ended were a study in surreal quiet. Claire's guest room was a sanctuary of beige linen and abstract art. I slept in fits, dreams tangled with fragments of Korean verbs and Mark's laughing, betraying voice. I'd wake up disoriented. The unfamiliar ceiling, a blank slate upon which my mind would project the image of Mr. Park's knowing eyes, the cold weight of the water glass in my hand, the specific grain of the wood on the dinner table at Minori. Claire, respecting the shock, didn't push. She left folders on the coffee table, brochures for therapists who specialized in trauma and narcissistic abuse, printouts on California divorce law, a list of recommended financial planners. She made food and left it where I could find it. She answered the incessant ping of my silenced phone, her tone shifting from polite legalese to icy warning, as Mark's messages escalated from confusion to venom to desperate bargaining. On the third morning, over strong coffee, she slid a legal pad between us. "Okay, shock phase is necessary, but we're moving to strategy phase. You're not a victim on a raft, Alina. You're the captain of a ship in a storm. Time to chart the course." She drew 3 columns. "Financial, legal, personal." "Financial," she began, tapping the pad. "We have the initial evidence. The Luxembourg account statements you photographed are our Rosetta Stone, but it's a snapshot. We need the full movie. Today, you're going to request online access to every joint account you have. You're going to download statements for the last 5 years. You're going to find the old tax returns we need to see what was declared versus what was hidden." "He'll see the login alerts," I said, my voice still rusty with disuse. "Let him." Claire's smile was thin. "Let him sweat. It changes nothing. He's already been served and suspended. The gloves are off. The goal is to trace every dollar. We're going to hire a forensic accountant. His name is Arjun. He's a bloodhound. He'll find the properties, the shell companies, the rest." She moved her finger to legal. "The divorce petition is filed. The response period is 30 days. He will respond, and he will fight, because men like Mark cannot conceive of not winning. We will counter every motion. Simultaneously, we are preparing the ethics complaint for his former employer. That is a parallel track. It applies pressure, undermines his credibility, and most importantly, it may unlock witnesses or documents we can't get through discovery alone. His Chloe likely still works there." The name was a needle prick. "Chloe from the mergers team. Personal," Claire said, her voice softening a fraction. "This is the column you fill. You need to tell your family, your sister first. You need to decide what to do about your job. You need to start thinking about where you will live. This apartment is yours as long as you need it, but you need a space that is yours. And you," she looked at me directly, "need to remember who you were before you were Mark's wife. What did Alina love?" I stared into my coffee. Before Mark, there was a girl who loved foreign films with subtitles, who argued politics late into the night, who wanted to backpack across Asia. That girl had been archived, labeled immature ambitions. Korean had been my first, furtive attempt to retrieve her. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. "Then we start with small reclamations," Claire said simply. "Today, after you do the banking, you will walk to the bookstore down the street. You will buy 1 book, in any language, on any topic, that you want to read. Not for a book club, not because it's important, because it interests you." The simplicity of the assignment was its genius. The financial digging was a descent into a hidden city. With the passwords I still knew, I accessed our main savings and brokerage accounts. I saw the pattern clearly now. A transfer of $5,000 here, $10,000 there, every few months, always to an institution listed as Intel Transfer Holding. The memos read investment diversification or tax strategy. The money flowed out, but the quarterly statements that came to the house showed only the aggregated, smoothed out totals. He'd been fabricating consolidated reports, I realized, printing fake summaries to keep in the files I might see. I compiled everything, my hands steady, the shock giving way to a focused, cold fury. I forwarded, downloaded, screenshot. I found the digital copies of our last 3 tax returns. Cross-referencing was beyond me, but I could see discrepancies. Reported dividend income was lower than what our visible portfolio should have generated. The money was somewhere, earning something, and he was keeping the fruit for himself. In the afternoon, I walked to the bookstore. The air smelled of rain and exhaust. I wandered the aisles, feeling unmoored. Self-help, too soon. Fiction. It felt like an escape I didn't deserve. I found myself in the travel section, then in languages. My fingers trailed over familiar spines, and then I saw it, a slim volume of modern Korean poetry, bilingual edition. I bought it. It felt like a secret handshake with my future self. When I returned, Claire had Arjun on speakerphone. His voice was calm, methodical. "What you've provided is excellent, Alina. It's the key. The Intel transfer holding is almost certainly a routing entity. The destination will be a numbered account. We will subpoena the domestic bank for the full transfer details. Once we have the recipient bank in Luxembourg, we can, through international legal channels, and the fact this is a marital asset case, petition for disclosure. It will take time, but the pressure from his company's investigation may force his hand sooner. He may try to move it again, which would be even more damning." "What about properties?" Claire asked. "We start with county recorder offices in the areas he traveled to most for work: Phoenix, Austin, Denver. Also, look for LLCs. He may have titled them under a business name. Check his email for anything from property managers, utility companies, HOAs." I remembered the printed emails, the ones about the Scottsdale villa occupancy rates I'd thought were for a client. I hadn't photographed those. They were still in his filing cabinet. "I need to go back," I said quietly. Claire and Arjun fell silent. "It's a risk," Claire said. "He's volatile. I need those emails. And there are physical tax documents in the safe. I know the combination. It's our wedding date." The Ione tasted metallic. We went the next day, again with a police officer beneath us, a woman with a calm, watchful presence as a precaution. Mark's car was gone. The condo felt like a museum of a dead civilization. The air was still, thick with the ghost of a life I no longer belonged to. I went straight to the study. The printed emails about the Scottsdale property were in a file labeled AZ Project. I photographed every page. The villa was held under an LLC called Mesa Horizon Holdings. I opened the small wall safe behind his framed MBA diploma. Behind the passports and my grandmother's jewelry, he hadn't touched that, at least, were the older, original tax returns. I took them all. I was packing a box with my winter clothes from the bedroom closet when I heard the key in the door. Mark walked in, followed by a man in a cheap suit, his lawyer, I presumed. Mark looked worse than before, thinner, a frantic energy in his eyes. He stopped short when he saw me, Officer Benitez hovering near the doorway, and Claire standing beside me like a shield. "Alina," he said, the word strangled. The man in the suit put a warning hand on his arm. Double quotes. "Ms. Volkov is here to collect personal belongings under the terms of the temporary restraining order," Claire stated, her voice flat. "You are permitted to be present but may not interfere or approach within 50 feet. This is Officer Benitez." Mark's eyes burned into me, ignoring them. "You're destroying me. Is that what you want? Total destruction." I kept folding a sweater. "I'm securing what is legally mine. You started the separation of assets, Mark. I'm just finishing the inventory." "It wasn't like that," he burst out. The lawyer whispered urgently. "The Luxembourg account was a tax shelter. For us. For our future." I finally looked at him. "And the transfers to Mesa Horizon Holdings was our future in Scottsdale, too. And the future you were discussing with Chloe, was that for us as well?" He flinched as if struck. The name, spoken aloud in this context, made it real for everyone in the room. "You have no right," he began. "I have every right." I cut him off, my voice quieter than his, but it filled the space. "I have the right to half of what we built in 15 years. I have the right not to be lied to, cheated on, and financially manipulated. You can explain your tax shelter and your efficient arrangement to the judge." I closed the box and picked it up. Claire took another. As we walked past him, I stopped. I didn't look at him, but at his lawyer. "Tell your client that any further communication goes through my attorney, and tell him that the next time he wants to discuss complex financial strategy, he should make absolutely sure his wife doesn't speak the language." Officer Benitez followed us out. In the elevator, my legs trembled. Claire put a steadying hand on my back. You were perfect. I feel sick. That's normal. That's the adrenaline, leaving a body it no longer recognizes as a wasm. The meeting with my sister Lara was a different kind of ordeal. We met at a noisy, neutral cafe. Her face, so like our mother's, was etched with worry before I even sat down. Mark called me, she said, stirring her tea endlessly. He said you had a breakdown, that you're having a midlife crisis, and are being manipulated by a lawyer friend into destroying your life. I'd expected this. The preemptive strike, painting me as the unstable one. It was textbook. Do I look like I'm having a breakdown, Lara? She studied me. I saw her take in my calm posture, my clear eyes. No, you look tired, but focused, I told her. Not every brutal detail, but enough. The Korean, the dinner, the hidden accounts, the affair. I showed her the screenshot of the Luxembourg transfer. Her face paled, then hardened. That weasel, she whispered, fury replacing confusion. That arrogant, cheating weasel, all those years, talking down to you about not understanding the pressure. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. What do you need? The solidarity was a bomb. Just to believe me, to have my back when he tells his story to the family. Done. Mom and Dad will be harder, but I'll handle them. She squeezed my hand. You learned Korean. Seriously. A small, genuine smile touched my lips for the first time in weeks. The y'all hey yes, pretty well. My job was the next frontier. I couldn't face the sympathetic stares or whispered gossip at the nonprofit. Claire helped me draft an email requesting a leave of absence under the Family and Medical Leave Act, citing a serious personal health matter. It was true, in its way. My marriage had been a sickness, and I was now in surgery. My director, a kind woman named Patricia, wrote back immediately granting it, offering any support I needed. With the immediate fires contained, a strange, empty space opened up. The frantic activity of law and evidence gave way to the quiet terror of facing myself. Who was I without the label of Mark's wife? Claire's assignment persisted. I started reading the book of Korean poetry. The poems were about loss, about cities, about the persistence of self in shifting landscapes. I understood them in a way I never could have before. I also began walking, long, aimless walks through neighborhoods I'd never explored. I visited museums alone, spending 20 minutes in front of a single painting if I wanted to. I ate in restaurants at the bar, ordering whatever looked good, with no one to comment or suggest something else. These small acts of solitary choice were profoundly disorienting and equally empowering. 6 weeks after the dinner at Minhari, Claire called me into her office. Arjun was there, along with a mountain of paper. We found it all, Arjun said, a hint of triumph in his placid tone. The Luxembourg account leads to a trust in the Cayman Islands. The trust holds the Scottsdale villa and a condo in Denver, all funded by the diverted marital assets. We also found a whole life insurance policy with a massive cash value, taken out 2 years ago, with Chloe listed as a partial beneficiary. The air left my lungs, the coldness of it, the meticulous planning. He'd been building a lifeboat, and he'd been carefully loading it with our shared supplies, preparing to launch it with her. His company's investigation is complete, Claire added. They've terminated him for gross misconduct and violation of multiple ethics clauses. They are considering whether to refer the matter to the SEC for potential securities violations, given he was using inside knowledge of company performance to time some of his personal investments. That is a nuclear option for him. What does this mean for us? I asked. It means, Claire said, leaning forward, that when we sit down for settlement negotiations, which his new lawyer is suddenly very eager to do, his position is catastrophic. He is unemployed, facing potential regulatory scrutiny, and we have an ironclad case for hidden assets, financial misconduct, and adultery, which still influences rulings here. He will want to avoid a public trial at all costs. The negotiation was held in a bland conference room in a lawyer's building. Mark sat across from me, flanked by his attorney, a tired-looking man named Higgins. Mark wouldn't meet my eyes. He looked diminished, the arrogant shine completely gone, replaced by a sullen, cornered anxiety. Claire laid out our terms, an equal division of all marital assets, including the full current value of the hidden properties and offshore accounts, with a penalty adjustment in my favor for the intentional dissipation of assets, spousal support for 5 years, my legal fees to be paid from the marital estate, the retention of my own retirement accounts, and the non-profit of the condo we lived in, which would be sold. Higgins argued, blustered about exaggerated valuations and the difficulty of repatriating foreign assets. Claire was a glacier, cool and immovable. She slid copies of Arjun's reports across the table. She mentioned the insurance policy. She alluded to the company's findings and possible SEC interest. Finally, after hours of tense back and forth, Mark spoke, his voice ragged. Just give her what she wants. I can't. I need this to be over. It was the sound of unconditional surrender. The final settlement agreement was a phone book of a document. I signed it in Claire's office, the pen feeling heavy and significant. It was done. That the sale of the condo was swift. The real estate market was hot. Walking through it for the final staging, it felt like someone else's life. I took nothing but my personal items, my books, and the few pieces of art I'd bought myself. The profits from the sale, after the mortgage was paid, were split according to our decree. With the financial foundation laid, I turned to Mr. Park's offer. The interview was not like any I'd ever had. It was held over video conferencing, connecting me to Seoul. Mr. Park was there, along with a younger woman, introduced as Ji, who would be heading the new office's operations. Ms. Alina, Mr. Park began in Korean. Thank you for meeting with us. I trust you are well. I am, thank you, Mr. Park. Much better, I replied in the same language. Ji Hyan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Mr. Park smiled. Your fluency has improved since our dinner. It has had reason to, I said evenly. He nodded, understanding. We are establishing a bridge. Our investments in North America are growing, but we lack a cultural interpreter. We need someone who can explain us to them, and them to us, who can navigate the unspoken rules, the expectations, the potential for offense. We need more than a translator. We need a diplomat of meaning. For the next hour, they questioned me, not about typical marketing metrics, but about scenarios. How would you explain a delayed project to American investors without losing face? How would you mediate a dispute between a Korean engineering team who values hierarchy and an American design team that values flat collaboration? What is the most important thing Americans misunderstand about Korean business? I drew on everything: my professional experience in communications, my deep dive into the language and culture, and yes, my intimate knowledge of how a man like Mark, who saw the world in terms of dominance and utility, could completely misread a situation. I talked about the importance of nunchi, the art of sensing mood and reading a room, and how it could be applied to stakeholder management. I talked about the difference between direct and indirect communication, and when each was appropriate. At the end, Ji Hyan asked, "And why do you want this role, Miss Elena?" "It will be challenging. You will be caught between two worlds." I thought for a moment. For a long time, I was in a world where my voice was considered background noise. I learned to listen very closely to what was said and what was meant. I learned to navigate a space where I was present but not seen. This has given me a unique sensitivity. I don't want to be background noise anymore. I want to use that sensitivity to build a bridge, to make sure meaning isn't lost in translation. Because, when it is, I said, thinking of a dinner table, things of great value can be destroyed. There was a silence. Then Mr. Park spoke. "Thank you, Miss Elena. We will be in touch." The offer came 2 days later. The title was Director of Cross-Cultural Strategy. The salary was transformative. The mandate was exhilaratingly vague and powerful. To ensure the success of the Seoul-based firm's North American expansion by managing all communication, perception, and cultural integration. I had a purpose, a giant, terrifying, magnificent purpose of my own. The first year in the new role was a whirlwind. I found a small, bright apartment with a view of the water, not the financial district. I filled it with plants, art I loved, and books in both English and Korean. I worked harder than I ever had, traveling to Seoul quarterly, building a tiny, brilliant team, and slowly earning the trust of both the head office and the newly acquired American teams. It was during my third trip to Seoul, after a grueling but successful negotiation session, that Mr. Park invited me for tea, not in a conference room, but in a quiet, traditional, Hanok house turned tea house. "You have done exceptional work," he said, pouring the fragrant barley tea. "You have prevented several diplomatic incidents, Asterisk, thank you. It's been a learning process. For us all. He sipped his tea. May I ask a personal question? Of course. That night, at the restaurant, when you heard him, what was the first thing you felt? The memory was no longer a knife twist, but a preserved specimen I could examine. I said, a cold so complete it felt like my bones had turned to ice. Then, a kind of clarity, like a fog had lifted, and for the first time, I could see the landscape of my life exactly as it was, not as I'd wished it to be. He nodded slowly. I saw that clarity settle on you. It is a rare thing to witness the moment a person chooses to see the truth. Most people spend a lifetime choosing the fog. I am glad you did not. The world needs more people who can bear the clarity. It was the closest we ever came to discussing it again. Back home, my life slowly filled not with the busyness of a coupled life, but with the rich, chosen texture of a singular one. I reconnected with old friends. I took that pottery class and made several lopsided mugs I cherished. I had a passionate, tumultuous, 2-year relationship with a musician that ended because our life rhythms didn't match, but it taught me I could feel passion again, on my own terms. The serious relationship Claire had mentioned came later, when I was 15. His name was Leo, a landscape architect. He was quiet, observant, and had built a beautiful life of his own after his own divorce. We didn't merge worlds. We visited each other's with respect and curiosity. We were together for 5 peaceful, joyful years. When he got an offer to lead a restoration project in Italy for 2 years, we parted with affection and genuine well-wishing. There was no drama, no betrayal, just 2 whole people whose paths diverged. I never had children. That was a grief, but one I'd made peace with long before the divorce. My life became rich with nieces, nephews, godchildren, and the bright young people on my team whom I sometimes mentored. I retired at 6. The company gave me a send-off in Seoul and New York. Mr. Park, long retired himself, sent a scroll with beautiful calligraphy. It read, "The bridge remains, steady and true." Now, at 73, my life is quiet in the best way. I still tutor Korean, usually for young professionals or adoptees seeking connection. I read voraciously. I travel for pleasure, not business. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I think about that dinner. Mark's email, the one he sent years later, sits deleted in the digital void. He remarried, had children, seemingly found a different kind of life. I bear him no active malice. He is a character from a book I read long ago, a cautionary tale. The pain he caused was the fire that forged the metal of my current life. I would not invite the pain back, but I cannot regret the strength it revealed. The story I've just told you is the truth of it. It's a story about listening, about the power of truly understanding what is being said in the room when people think you're not part of the conversation. That power isn't just about language, it's about attention, intuition, and the courage to believe the evidence of your own senses over the comforting story you've been told. If you are in a place where you feel decorative, incidental, where your passions are framed as hobbies and your ambitions as inconveniences, start listening. Listen to what is said when they think you can't comprehend. Listen to the silence where your opinion should be. Listen to the quiet voice inside you that names the feeling, this is not enough. Then, begin your own secret project. Learn the language of finance, of code, of law, of a culture, of your own worth. Gather your evidence. Build your case. Find your one true friend who will hand you a legal pad and a blanket in equal measure. The journey out will be the hardest thing you ever do. You will lose a version of yourself you clung to for safety. You will face fear, fury, and a grief that feels bottomless. But on the other side is a profound and irreplaceable freedom. The freedom to be the sole author of your days, to make choices, big and small, that resonate with your own soul, to have a voice that matters, first and foremost, to you, to be essential to your own story. That life authentic, uncompromising, and wholly your own is not just a possibility, it is your birthright. And no one, no matter how clever or confident or condescending, can ever get away with hiding it from you again, unless you let them. So don't let them. Start today. Your future self is waiting, and she is fluent in every language that matters. Asterisk,